going on, everyone? Welcome back to another exciting episode of Tech Productions. I'm being joined today by Jake and Nick.
What's going on, y'all?
Howdy, howdy.
And today we got a lot to cover. It's been a bit since we've done one of these things, so let's kind of get right into it. There's buttons, stuff down below in the description. Check them out. First things first, new set came out, at least the pre-release. And if you're one of the few who happen to get some cards, fantastic. But there's a few things kind of interesting with these cards. First thing, I think the quality of the cards are garbage compared to what we're used to. I immediately grabbed the card and I was like, something's off. It's more of a matte feel than it is a gloss feel, and it feels thinner. You know, it's the same thickness though, which is just due to the way the coating of the paper is. But yeah, it was the first thing I noticed when I got these cards.
Yeah, I think I was opening a pack or something, and you were behind me, and you were like, "Those cards look fake." Like,
they do.
It's just way different than what we're used to.
Yeah, other than the foils and the SR, SPR stuff, like it feels like Bandai proxied their own cards. Like they look soapy, they look really dull. It's weird.
Yep. I don't think I got my box in front of me, but like I said, just from feeling them alone, it threw me off. So Nick, you happened to notice this when you were doing some trades today at the shop. There were two cards in particular you all had came across, and I haven't found them anywhere being posted on Facebook or Reddit. But two cards were mislabeled, or more or less had a different name than what we were told. And those cards are the Android 18 and Krillin, Future Spun by Battle, and if I recall correctly, Android 18, Force Wave, something like that.
On the card, it's called Helping Her Husband.
Yeah, on the card, it printed as Helping Her Husband, and then the Future Spun by Battle is printed as Super Powered Spouses. So, at least those two cards have different names than what we were shown. Now, that could break down to a QA issue, a QC issue when it comes to quality control, where these could have been, as I discussed with Jake before, older names that just never got changed over before the samples were made, or vice versa. The samples were made first, and then they changed the names without making a post about them, and then just let the cards go. Because they didn't show any of these cards. Like, I went through the Facebook.
Yeah, they showed pictures of all the SPR arts, but they didn't show those two cards in particular. I guess because of that misprinting of itself.
They didn't show those cards in general. Like, even when it came to the silver foiling or even the gold foiling, like, we saw 21s, we saw Universe 7s, we saw the GT Goku Android 18 cards, but we didn't see anything of those two particular cards. And it could just be these two cards that were a change.
I think it's really interesting because, I was doing some trades to get values on cards, and we were like, let's look it up on TCG Player real quick, and we couldn't find the cards. So really, they exist. We have them.
Yep.
Yeah, they're listed on TCG Player as well as their different card names and what's on the card. So I guess be careful with that when you're trying to build 18, because I think they're both locked to 18 liters. So just be wary of the names of the cards.
Yeah, that's interesting little thing, and like Bancroft, that'd be interesting I'd be interested in what the behind the scenes is on that. Like, did the card name get changed? Was there like a licensing issue? Like what happened where this debacle has occurred? I think Bancroft probably hit it on the head, where the names were changed for the set, but not internally. And internally, they were just referring to the card by their old names the whole time. So when it came time to do the pre-release, whoever was in charge of it knew the card by that other name and just sent it.
If you all happen to have come across any other cards that have different names, let us know in the comments down below and your experience with those. But yeah, for sure, it's just those two that we've came across so far. Maybe we should check every card. I mean, what were you gonna say, Jake?
I was gonna say, like, there's bound to be more than one. You know, it's potentially in other archetypes too. So like, pay close attention to everything.
It's one of those things where I felt like it shouldn't matter too much because we go off I think the card's number now, if I recall correctly, like the
For deck building and
for deck
stuff.
building,
Yeah.
yeah. So as long as whatever it is, we're going off those numbers, so it should be like it should be fine in future references because we've had plenty of Sun Goku cards and Vegeta cards. If this happens to be a mix up with a say something in a promo or something for next year and another set that was intended for it, and it may have the same name, they can just switch them out now. So speaking of pre-release, we actually had an interesting pre-release this time around. So typically, we used to originally do it at our shop, kind of like a draft, and not a lot of people like that. So we do constructed pre-release stuff, and we did Team Wars for the first time this week. That was interesting, and without going into too much details, we did get 2 matches recorded. One of them is AOD versus SS4 Goku Vegeta, and the other one was Cooler Mill versus SS4 Bardock. So stay tuned for those videos as well. And I am getting a box opening later this week as well. What do you guys think about Team Wars? This is our first time really doing an experiment as that. And you guys actually were teammates in this particular situation. So you had a little more experience when it came to communicating with each other about building your decks.
Yeah, I think as soon as the event was announced, Nick and I just kind of looked at each other and pretty much assumed we'd be on a team. Like, I had a lot of fun with it. It was really cool having to sit down and strategize with your team. Like, in our case, like weeks before the event ever happened, so we could like build decks and test and uh, make sure everything was working well together. But I hope it's something we do a few times a year, if not like once a month or something, because I thought it was a really cool format. I especially like being able to like coach your teammates through like difficult situations or offer an alternate perspective.
Yeah, but being this a really one person 1v1 style of game, I mean, it's still fun what it is, but just having a mix up like that where you have a team of players that you're relying on now and you can strategize with, and like Jake said, get different perspectives and lines of play and stuff. It's a lot of fun. Because that's why all of us got into this card game from the beginning. We just made some big friendships out of this, and being able to play cooperatively was just a really nice change of pace. It was a good shakeup.
And for those who haven't done Team Wars before, pretty much it's a team of 3 players, and each person in the team cannot use a card that's already in someone else's deck. So that being said, if one person is playing, say, a Sensu Bean, even though they're not playing, say, 4 Sensu Beans in their deck, no one else on their team can play Sensu Bean. Even if it's like if they're playing only 2, there's 2 available in a complete set when it comes to a deck, no one else can touch that card. And like they mentioned, while the matches are happening, we could more or less coach with our teammates, or at least more or less give some form of assistance. As long as you're not completely telling someone how to play their hand, there is that ability to kind of like, hey, I don't know this matchup as well as you do. What should I expect? Which is pretty. I did enjoy it. Cause I remember like when we started, me and Fluff were on a team with with Austin, and Fluff like immediately just like as soon as we started, what's the counterplay for AOD? I'm like, oh, it's Android 13, 3 or less cards. And he's like, okay, thanks. And it was just so good to be able to kind of like, even though he couldn't remember that, his opponent now is like, oh, he now knows how to play around that certain counterplay card.
Yeah.
I don't mind Team Wars. At the same time, I don't like Team Wars.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where, yes, the coaching's the element, but there's still a degree to like, you have to rely on your teammates. And you can have a really good game, but if your teammates have a bad game, it will hold you back, and vice versa. Like if you have a bad game and your teammates are doing great, you're all of a sudden the one who's holding your team back from being number one,
Yeah, it's like simultaneously extra pressure and also like it's supposed to like relieve pressure, right? Because you're like, hey,
Yeah.
if I lose, my teammates can win. But now it's like, oh, if I lose, I'm screwing over more than just me.
Yeah.
So, Bancroft, what you're saying is you're not a team player.
No. I am a team player.
It's not when other people are involved. Well, I get it. It's a personal thing. Like how to play the game. You play the game very well, so you don't want to rely on the success or failures of your peers. Which I mean, yeah, it's understandable. But I think it's one of the things that is kind of weird too is since we normally have a relatively smaller group size, that it can get kind of one sided and not necessarily easy, but just what to expect at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So with bigger events and larger group sizes, I bet it's like a blast because you're playing with multiple multiple decks all over the place. So it's kind of limiting with because we had 4 teams in total, so 12 people playing,
which is great.
So
normally we have like 10ish people show up, maybe 8 to 10. At least right now it's been, but we had 12 people come in today, it just felt great seeing that many people to shop again.
There were people playing that weren't even on a team; they're just hanging out.
Yeah.
So it's good when you have really large group sizes, like when you have more teams than just 4, because essentially at the end of the day we only had 2 actual games played. So it's a nice format. I'd love to do it again because it's fun with the camaraderie, but I feel like we could do stuff better now that we've got that experience of playing one like this. We know what to do next time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I will say, as everyone knows when it comes to our channel, I'm the AOD player, and I had to make, to me, it felt like sacrifices in my deck so that way my teammates could play certain cards. And so like Austin was playing Cooler Mill, and he relies on Senzu Bean for using as a response to his opponent's turn to reset energy and then turn around to play cards to neg out his opponents. And I, as AOD, tend to like using Senzu Bean, at least 2 in my deck, as a way to maximize my opponent's offensive turn, where I could counterplay and still negate, because I used that Senzu Bean earlier in that turn to set up for these plays. And I had to completely change the way I play AOD because I couldn't use the Senzu Beans. And also, there's no sideboarding in these formats, which makes it even harder, because now you have to actually, and which should be weird, because like, should we be used to doing that? Sure, but we've been doing best of 1 sideboards for almost a year now, and I make my decks as a roughly 65 to 68 card deck, and 15 of those cards are just like, oh, these are the sides, and I will plug and chug when needed. And now I'm like, oh, I have to reassess the way I think that again, and no longer is it a plug and chug system, but more now I just have to have my deck itself. So that was a fun experience, kind of getting back into that.
Yeah, it kind of gives you a little bit of, it kind of like forces you to play, like you were saying, decks that you've played before differently, because you don't want to have a bunch of overlap with your team.
Yeah.
And maybe you can find things like, oh, I don't need this card. Like, I can cut this from my regular build because I played in this entire Team Wars event and didn't miss it once, or, oh, this deck is super important to have this, I think like our team very early on, we just were like, what color do you guys want to play? And stay the hell out of each other's color.
So,
like, try not to splash. Like,
that's the idea. It really is. The problem is that me and Fluff didn't get their teammate till I think a week beforehand. And I was just like, all right, Austin, what do you want to play? And whatever it is, I'll make the adjustments to my deck to make sure it works, because I don't know if I have time to fully craft a color that suit it that way. And he wanted to go to Cooler Mill. I'm like, all right, cool. Do you need Senzu Bean? He's like, yeah. I'm like, all right, that's fine. I don't have time to make a whole green deck or a red deck that you're not using pieces of, because like he's using both blue and red now. And I'm like, I will just use this and try to make it work so that way you and Fluff can play the decks you guys want to play, and I'll just be that middle guy. And I felt like that might have been kind of you guys were, because your teammate was playing SS Bardock. And I feel like in a matchup like that, yes, you could substitute the Roshis as a way of picking up the energy and replacing them and mix them around, but it plays it in rest mode. So for SS Bardock, I would like to have Senzu Bean, But Adam, your all's teammate, couldn't use that because Nick was using Senzu Beats.
Yeah,
Well,
and that was we kind of got lucky on that one because SS4 Bardock is a very archetype heavy deck. There's not much tech, but that was one of the things we actually squashed out pretty early was Sensu Bean. Because I straight up asked him, I was like, you can have it if you need it, if you feel like you need the defense. But we came up with the other idea of running Protector of the People.
Yeah.
So we were able to come up with it kind of worked out for us because we all three of us were able to come up with a strategy so where he can still get defense when he needed it, but at the same time not rely on a card like Sensu Bean so I can have it for my defense.
Yeah. Actually, I told that to Austin. Like, when he gave me his list, I'm like, no. If you got Senzu Bean, I need Protector of People just in case I go up against another aggro deck. I need something to give me that extra 5k onto my leader.
yeah, I think it's also funny how both of our teams had a multicolor player and a 5-color player in this event where you kind of want to like stay out of other
Yeah.
colors.
Yeah, because Nick
Like
played blue-green.
Yeah, but like Nick said, we got away with it by playing like really archetype heavy decks, and that really kept us from even if we were dipping into each other's colors. Like I had a few black cards in my yellow deck and things like that. We were able to stay far enough away from each other's game plans that I didn't feel like we were stepping on toes at all. And like Bean was the one card. Oh, and hashing out the Z decks was interesting because so many of those cards are so generic that we did had to spend some time figuring out who's running what Z deck wise. But
Yeah, that was
I think
fun.
that might have been I think that might have been one of our team's strengths overall because it forced us to like reach out into like more obscure Z cards and doing interesting things like playing the green Jiren in a black leader or
Speaking of
we
which, me and Nick played off camera. Were you when I first played it, were you surprised I played Jiren?
I guess, yeah. I mean, it's great for Unicorn removal. So since you have access to that green energy, I mean, it's just the easiest way to get it done, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it did catch me off guard a little bit, but at the end of the day, I was playing Gamma. I don't know if it's been noticed yet, but the good thing about Gamma is the 17-18 unison is literally just a lightning rod. So I'm fine with wasting the resources on it. But yeah, it was a caught off guard type thing.
Yeah. And like I think in our matchup, I charged the super combo. I charged the slug super combo. And you just went interesting. Like you're that's not something I would normally want to do, but I was like, I need the green energy. I'm okay with doing this. I don't need this card against Nick in this particular moment.
Yeah, I had a game where I had to charge a couple pretty integral pieces to my deck as well, just because being flooded with them. You've got an 8-card hand and 4 copies of the same card. Like, I don't care how good it is, you're gonna charge one of them. Like,
We in my Nick's me and Nick went to round 3 in our matchup. In that last round, when I was drawing all those cards very quickly, and I played the Garlic Jr., I was looking for my 4 super combo to play on the board. It was in my hand. I didn't even realize I had all 4 super combos in my hand at that point as well.
What a weird night.
So about a little over a week ago, we had Worlds, and at Worlds they showcase the digital card game. At least we got a more in-depth ish trailer. So we'll have the beta coming out March 25th to the 26th, I think, and take a look at the trailer. Register for the beta. Yeah, March 25th, 26th. But I'm really excited, and as long as there's not a like don't record stuff, I will definitely be recording the beta if I get into it for the channel. So I'm really curious on how this is going to go down. And I remember talking to Jimmy about this, where this is going to force interactions that where it has always been kind of like, oh, this is how the card's read. Is this how it's going to play as well? And Jimmy informed me that they're definitely making sure that it's going to work that way. And hopefully it's going to be a way to try things out to be put into the actual card game before release from I'm gathering.
Yeah, they could use, I mean, even for just internal testing, the digital client would be huge, you know? Just like even if the cards don't ever see the light of day, you could just draw them up digitally, in-house if you're Bandai and play them against each other and combine them with anything and really get a good way to play test that way. So yeah, that'll help increase the quality of the game overall. Um, I was talking to one of our local friends, Scotty, about this the other night, and I think that the digital client can go one of two ways. Uh, Master Duel is a excellent way to play a card game that has a paper equivalent uh, on your computer or tablet or whatever. It's pretty fair to players as far as pricing goes and like being able to buy product and build decks and things like that. And they're pretty generous with like quests and things for currency. Or it could end up being like Magic the Gathering Arena, where everything is too expensive and uh, the systems in the game almost feel obstructionist to you building a collection rather than enabling you to build a collection. So I honestly hope they copy Master Duel as close to one for one as they can, and just replace the Yu-Gi-Oh gameplay with Dragon Ball, because I think it's not a heavy load. Like there's not a lot of features and stuff going on, but pretty much everything you would want in a card game is there. Like there's private games, ranked, unranked, uh, you can buy packs, all that stuff.
I'm really curious on what route they're going to take it when it comes to product. Like, because I think people were discussing originally, like, seasoned players who have all of these cards don't really have a reason to get into the digital version of the game. I know we talked about this before when they first announced it, but that's still where my curiosity lies. It's like, I have, like, me and Fluff got pretty much has every card now, that's there's a few promos we're missing, but regardless, we have majority of the cards in the game. And why do we shift over to a digital format, to play with more people in a wider range? Because you could just see the internet, you can do whatever you want, and it's easier to do this than it would be technically webcams. Because we've seen a handful of people like just blatantly cheat in webcam
Oh
cam
yeah.
games, and like they're not even trying to hide it. Sometimes it's like, okay, that uh, hey, that's wrong. But in a digital client like this, it's easier to make those things happen. And if we're able to use this as a way of tournaments, maybe they'll give access for every card for said tournaments, and then that's just because like a one-time thing. I don't know. I'm really
Like
curious.
special events, yeah. I think that I think going forward, maybe doing something like what Pokemon does, where they include a
A
card
code.
in the pack that is just a digital code for a pack for the online game. I think that would be a great option for them to do if they wanted to invest in it that way. But honestly, I don't expect them to really do anything for established players. And unless they do something for like content creators or like tournament players and stuff and just give them packs because of who they are, other than like your average Joe like has every card collector guy, I honestly don't think that they're gonna do anything for that person other than right when the game launches, they'll be showering you with stuff, and then as the months roll on, they'll dial it back.
So, Jake, here's a question for you. Also at Worlds, beforehand, just to say, kudos to Big Rotation making it to the finals. It is rough when you accidentally forget to do a charge turn one, but I was really proud to see him make it that far. But Trunks Gita won. You are a Trunks Gita player. How did that make you feel?
Um, Validated but unsurprised. I've been singing this deck's praises since it came out. I think it's one of the stronger decks that Bandai has printed without like completely snapping it to where it's unfun even to I'm sure it could be unfun to play against, but some decks are just unfun even to pilot. Like they're just so snapped, you know what I mean? But I think Trunks and Vegeta is the fundamentals of the deck are so solid where you're just constantly drawing cards and getting free combo power off the one drops and disrupting plays. You can build the deck in so many different ways that it can just fit in almost anywhere. And the fundamental engine, the core of the deck is solid enough that it'll be playable until something is banned or limited. I don't know if it'll be top tier forever, but it'll be playable pretty much forever. It's like Soul Striker in that way, where it didn't really matter what you put in the Soul Striker deck. Untapping 2 energy was so powerful that you could pretty much do what you wanted. And it's the same kind of thing, I think. Nick, what did you think about Gamma being in the finals?
Um, Honestly, it's kind of the same thing too. It's not as surprising as 20 Trunks Cheetah getting to the top and winning because we've seen Gamma come up time and time again. It kind of fell off a little bit when Zenkai first started, but it was just still popping back up. And it's honestly a good counter pick to a lot of this stuff just because it has so much control elements to it. And it can run with the big boys and just dropping big bombs over and over again. So, and the 3 energy back at the end of your turn is everything. So it's just like Soul Striker and honestly like Trunks Vegeta, where it just has such a powerful effect on its own, where it'll be around for a long time. It is restricted to androids, but Bandai likes their androids. They're going to print blue and green androids until the cows come home. So
Yeah.
there will always be some little tech you can spice in and uh, make it your own. And like I said, it's just an overall a good deck.
Speaking of tech, was there a tech that either one of you guys saw as pretty much people at our locals YouTube play these decks that you go, huh, that's interesting? I'm not sure if you guys saw the entire match or not.
So in a few games, the Trunks Vegeta player implemented that like 7-drop Frieza from I think Tournament of Power.
Yeah.
And as soon as I saw that card on the table, or rather I was at work and everyone was just talking, pretty much giving me play by play in the group chat. But as soon as that card started being talked about, I immediately realized the pressure that God Sealing Trunks was putting on the entire format.
Yes.
A lot of the cards that are being used right now, like bombs, would never be able to be included in a deck just 6 or 8 months ago because God Sealing was so strong. And honestly, I know it kind of limited the design space for bombs in general, but now I think we need some kind of updated God Sealing that's maybe a little bit less powerful. Maybe it costs it energy or something, something a little bit and makes it, a little bit more of a thinking man's card, we'll say. But yeah, that didn't really make me want to try it myself, but it really made me think about like the effect that God Sealing had on the format before it was banned.
I know like we've had a match that went to like turn 7, I think, with AOD versus Trunks Cheetah. Like you were able to just stall me at that long. And if you had a card like that at the time, that would have been really good.
The problem is if I go all in on like a 7-drop and it doesn't work,
That's
then you
true.
just die, right?
Yes.
So I think it was a very high risk, high reward play, and it's pretty smart of him to use it. I think we were talking about this at the shop earlier. I think it's more the fact that people hadn't seen it before and didn't know how to interact with it or weren't sideboarding for it, more so than it's just like a completely snapped card on its own, right? Because it has no protections, no barrier, no deflect. It doesn't draw a card when it comes in or any anything. So it's a really big, risky investment with a
Yeah,
huge payoff.
I think it was just the counter. It was just the perfect counter pick card because, like you were saying, God Ceiling's ban like hit opened the floodgates. Just so many big things most people didn't think about, and that card being what almost as old as the game itself. Like no one was expecting a card like that to come out on the board at all. So I think it was just a really, really smart counter pick for the meta that it was in, especially with a deck like Crimson where it does that stuff at the activate speed to just block the opponent off completely.
Yeah, that's really sick in that matchup. Has everybody applied for beta access for the digital client?
Mm-hmm.
Has anybody heard back yet?
Just the initial email.
Yeah, I just got the initial, but nothing else. Nothing further. I'm excited to see where it goes. After I will say this, after getting to see some of the newer cards, despite the downgrade in quality, after like seeing a lot of the newer cards in person and like hearing people talk about new strategies and stuff, I am more excited for this set than I was a few weeks ago. And I think I might actually try and build a couple decks from it
Yeah,
instead
that's
of
how it
just
usually goes. Like
yeah.
you're not really looking into it as much, and then bam, here it is, and you're like, oh well, never mind. Yeah, it's stuff I never thought about before. But back to the client one more time. Like I think it's going to just open the floodgates to new players because
Yeah.
I don't know about y'all, but this game can be insanely complicated. So an online client where it forces you to do interactions and stuff is exactly what new players need to get into this game and learn how to play it. So I think it'll be good from the start, and then it might actually coerce people to get out to their local game stores and try the game out in person and build more communities in more areas.
Yeah, I could definitely see it be good for that. And like you said, for new players, getting the interactions down is one of the biggest things, especially with so many different. Like, if the game itself will go, for example, the Yamcha, like, if you get an opportunity where you go, they play a card for skill, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, what's this button for? Counter window 2? Oh, like it allows you to realize when things can be played, the order of operations, instead of just trying to explain. Well, there's 2 counter windows, but only one appears if they play a card with skill. Every other time, it's not actually there. Like that can get a little bit
Yeah.
confusing. Because I remember when that interaction first occurred, it was kind of like, wait, what?
So Yamcha can't hit the card coming in because the card coming in doesn't exist yet, and because everything is in the green text. Wait, but how come Frieza kills it after it's on the table?
Yeah.
Like it's all just a great opportunity to clean up a lot of these rulings as well.
So I think that kind of covers for today's episode. We're getting to the point where it just feels like we're just reaching now. So, like always, it's buttons. Click them there for a reason. And hopefully we'll get more stuff out this week. And I'm still, Nick, I am working on it when I get time. It's just been really rough lately. But we have a video coming out eventually that I am working on. I do have progress on. And hopefully we'll be out in a week or so.
Oh yeah, our entire city lost electricity.
That's
Have
true.
we covered
Yeah.
this?
No,
Have we covered this?
No, last weekend we had no power.
Yeah, that's where we've been. That's why everything's delayed, folks. Is
Yeah.
that our entire city lost power for about 2 to 6 days, depending on where you live.
My neighbors, some people behind me didn't have power until like 3 days ago, and that power
It's like
outage
a
started
week.
on the 3rd.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, buttons, links in the description. Check them out. Thanks for all tuning in. Bye.